Some other cool things you can do in After Effects we're going to do now. We're going to, create an effect. We're going to apply an effect. There's all kinds of different special effects that are built in. But of course, there is kind of a protocol when using those effects. So we're going to go over that and learn that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're in the car ride composition. We're just going to deselect any layers. And we're going to create a special layer to contain this effect. Now, again, the playhead is going to determine where that effect's going to come into play. So we kind of want to make sure we got all this stuff kind of figured out as to where. So there's the building there that we want to put the effect on. So we're going to take our play and put it right around 2 seconds. It's not really going to make a huge difference right now, but it will when we start applying the effect. So we're going to go layer new, and we're going to do a special kind of layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a layer called the solid layer. Now, when the solid settings dialog opens up, we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it radio waves, which is basically the effect that we're going to put on here. And then we want it to match our composition. So we're going to click the make comp size button. Now, depending again on what you're doing with some of these effects, sometimes you see this is solid gray here. It doesn't really matter with this particular effect, but a lot of times it's best to take your RGB settings and set them all to 0, which is 0 black, or in our business we call key black. It really kind of can mess up some of these effects. So for today, we'll just see what happens. Now, of course, everybody's going to panic. Whoa, what the hell just happened? Everything just went black. Well, it's because I created a key black layer called radio waves. I want to take it now. I'm going to move it and place it just above the background layer, which is where I want it to sit in the composition. So that's where that layer is going to sit. So I can get an idea of how I want it to play. Now, the other thing we're going to do as well is, depending on how long I want this layer, and because it's an effect, you can see this whole layer is like the entire composition. And if I don't really need it to be through the whole composition, it's going to render it even after I don't see it anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically kind of edit the duration of this layer. And you can see there's these two, looks like bracket buttons down there. What they do is they give you in, out, and duration. So for that radio wave layer, basically the duration is the full thing. So I'm going to basically kind of minimize that to give it a new duration. I'm going to initially, let's just say we'll go 3 seconds, 300, so 3 seconds. And what that'll do basically is take that radio wave layer, and it will basically allow me to kind of chop it down a little bit, because it might just be a little too long for what I need. So now you can see, if I move it along, you can see actually I can make it even less, right? So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that duration, and I'm going to change it to 200, which will make it 2 seconds. And now you can see it's going to be a little more manageable depending on where I want it to be in my composition, which is going to be somewhere back here where those buildings are. And again, I can make it whatever. I could change the size of it wherever I need it, basically. So if I need it even smaller than that, like once those buildings are gone, maybe I could take that duration and set it to 130, which would be, basically if it'll let me do that, 1 minute and 30 seconds long, and it might not, and that's okay. You can actually shrink them on the timeline as well. So there's no real need to kind of get it to go to a particular size, but that's just one way to do it. And you can see I can just get it so that once, actually I might need to move this over a little bit, because my effect, I want it to happen basically through here. So maybe I will make it a little bit longer so it covers, the beginning here, and when the building comes in, and then when it basically once the building's gone, I don't need it anymore, so I can just drag it out to here. So that just gives you an idea of what adjustments that I might need on these layers. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my effect and I'm going to place it on there. And basically I want this effect to start kicking in somewhere around once the building with the spire is basically kind of in frame. So that's where I'm going to put my playhead to create this effect. So now what I need to do is I need to go and find the effect. So I'm going to go up to effect up here, and you can see there's a whole bunch of different effects, and I'm going to look for generate, and under generate I'm going to look for one called radio waves. And you're not going to really notice anything initially, but when I start dragging the playhead, now you're going to see these things emanating. Now, of course, they're all in the wrong spot, and they're all the wrong size, and they're not exactly kind of where I want them, but that's okay, because you can see up here now in this effects controls, I have the ability to go in here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put parameters are set at, and by default, it's set at birth. I'm going to change it to each frame, which initially doesn't seem like it makes a difference, but it will. And now I'm going to start playing around with some of the other parameters that are available here. First off, the expansion. It's kind of huge right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that down to a much smaller, probably to like a 0.40. And then velocity, which is another setting down here, is at 0. I'm going to set that up to 1. Actually, instead of dragging it, I'll just put 1 in there. So that's going to change the way that looks. And what I'm going to do is change the color here. Right now they're blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the RGBs to 255 for everything, the red, green, and the blue, which will give me RGB mixed together, will give me a white radio beams. And what I'm going to do is the opacity is a little heavy, so I'm going to change that to a 0.5. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the start width and end width. So you can see them there. They're both at 5. I'm going to change them both to 3, and that you will see an effect on there. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to place that where, I want that effect when it kicks in. I want it to be, where I want it to start generating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it and place it there. And you can see up here it says producer point. So what I'm going to do basically is click on that, and I'm going to drop my producer's point right there. So now you can see the waves generating. The only problem is it's kind of, it's kind of moving with the car, which is really not, I really don't want it to do that. So what I'm going to do now is where it says radio waves in the parent column, I'm going to basically change that so it's full skyline. So now hopefully what it'll do is I'll adjust that producer's point again so that it basically now will line up with the tower, and it'll stay there, right? So now when it goes through, you can see how it stays there, and then of course once car's gone, it disappears. All right, so that's how you can create some pretty cool effects in this program by using these. There's so many effects in here that give you an idea of just how you can play around to create these really neat effects. Okay, so I'm going to go File, Save As, and update my version number. I'm up to number 10.